Only a very small percentage of Modular Synth users actually do anything musical at all. And that's because Modular Synth is not possible to make music on a Modular Synth. It's just for making weird noises, bleeps and bloops and so on. At least that's what you might think if you were to read some of the comments in some of my videos. So, hello, welcome to another video, and today we are going to talk about, is Modular Synth just bleep bloop nonsense? Hey there, if you are enjoying these videos and you are enjoying the weird and wonderful world of modular synthesis, then please do consider hitting the subscribe button. It just lets the algorithm know that I'm not sat here muttering to myself in this room full of cables for no reason. And of course, if you would like to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon, the link is in the description. There's not an awful lot on there at the moment, but it is growing and it is filling up. You can kind of think of it as like an exclusive minimalist modular experience. But genuinely, your support is very much appreciated. It keeps the patch cables untangled and the ideas flowing. So thank you for being here, thank you for watching. It really does mean a lot. But let's get back to the video, shall we? Cheerio. So I think this is something, well, it's definitely something that I've talked about before, and it's definitely something that probably comes up again and again and again and again. And it's not an uncommon opinion. And sometimes that opinion is not just held by people outside of the modular synth community, but also maybe it is held by people within the modular synth community who actually feel that, you know, it's true that modular synth is not for making music and it is just for bleeps and bloops and messing around with. And I don't know, maybe even in the beginning, I might have felt that way myself, that the majority of people who get into modular synth are just making weird noises and not actually making any music. I know when I first started tinkering with modular, I was very much into, and I guess I still am to a certain extent, but I was very much into ambient music, and it was the whole sort of rings, clouds thing that sort of hooked me, and through VCV I started experimenting with that and really just loved that sound, that kind of like pad-like ambient sound that you can create with some nice reverb and so on. But you know, when you start out with something, you immediately, of course, try and consume as much material as possible, and so I spent a lot of time Googling and searching on YouTube for modular synth videos, and undoubtedly came across a lot of stuff that was really weird and really bizarre, that I had no understanding of what was going on, and thought to myself, oh my god, this is, well, this isn't really music, is it? This is just weird noises. And so yeah, so I would say I had that view myself in the beginning, that a lot of what is going on with modular is just weird noises and bleeps and bloops and whatever. And I guess if you sort of if you just kind of like graze the surface of what exists in the modular world, then you probably will come to that conclusion. And especially if you're somebody who is new to modular or is not even into modular, or you know, you definitely will have that opinion, or you'll come to that opinion, because you know, you'll see a lot of chaotic videos, you'll see a lot of experimental videos, you'll see a lot of demo videos and test patches, and sometimes these videos are not necessarily the most musical things, because they're trying to show modules off. They're trying to show the extremes of what a module can do sometimes. And of course, you know, we all know how the algorithm works. As soon as you click on one video and you see one thing that looks like whatever, YouTube thinks that you might be interested in that, so it starts showing you more of that video or that type of video. So as soon as you start, you know, as soon as you see one video of weird noises, YouTube's gonna like ramp a load more at you and see if you click on them. And you know, again, if you are new to modular, and all you're seeing is, you know, YouTube is delivering these weird experimental videos, then that's of course what you're going to take away. That's what modular is about. And then, you know, as I just said a minute ago, YouTube is just, well, it doesn't matter whether it's modular or whether it's guitar or I don't know, hard drives. YouTube is just a sea of gear reviews, and that's because that is the, well, I don't want to say the easiest, but that is there's always going to be people looking for a review of gear, and there's a constant turnover of new gear, which, you know, again, if you're looking to get a lot of views on a channel, if you do gear reviews, you're going to be able to build up a lot of views quite quickly. And so, you know, like anything, there are a lot of people out there that do gear reviews of modular, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's extremely useful, especially if you want to buy something and you want to know what it sounds like, or what, you know, what features it has, and so on and so on and so on. But a gear review, a demo, is not music. And, you know, many videos that will be demonstrating what a module can do will be showing off the extremes of what that module can do, which are not necessarily, you know, the most musical applications. And sometimes, you know, people will demonstrate a module within a piece of music, and I think there are a lot more, or there are quite a lot more channels now that there is kind of like a backlash against the whole gear review thing, and people are putting out more sort of, I don't know, not necessarily a gear review, but almost like a sort of gear tutorial type thing, where they are showing how a module works and showing how they use it and so on, which is much more interesting than watching your standard, you know, gear review type video. But I think probably what, you know, what sort of contributes to this the most is people's understanding of what music is, or what music can be. And of course, if you're coming from a background of sort of mainstream music, you know, whether that be sort of rock music or electronic music or whatever, there is an assumption that music is about melody, and it's about harmony, and it's about rhythm. Whereas once you start delving into the landscape of more experimental and electronic music, contemporary music that exists, you find that it's not so much about that. It's more about timbre and textures and generative processes and noise and so on. And all of this is a very different it's a very different realm of music, you could say. That if you're not used to it, and you don't sort of you know, study it, I guess you might say, it seems very alien, and it's unlike anything that you have heard before, and so you automatically assume that it's not good, or it's bad, it's not interesting, it's not music. But as you expose yourself to more of that type of music, whether it's modular synth or other types of experimental music, you start to develop an ear for that kind of thing, and you start to appreciate that there are actually musical elements in there that are worth listening to and even enjoying. Let's have some tea. But that takes time, and it takes effort to work at. You have to listen to the music, you have to expose yourself to it. And that is the case for, you know, all sorts of genres of music. I mean, how many people have criticised jazz because they just say, oh, it's just people playing all the wrong notes, or making mistakes all the time, and, you know, but what they don't understand is that there's a lot of complexity that goes into a jazz improvisation. You know, and I remember when I was at school, and my music teacher, we had to study certain set works at school, classical pieces, and the teacher advised that we should take a copy of one of the pieces of music that we were studying and take it home and just listen to it. And he's like, when you're sitting in the exam, always the students that have taken the music home and listened to it and you know, spent time with it do get better marks. And it's difficult to listen to because this music is difficult to listen to when you're not used to it. But as you listen to it more and you get to know it and you get to understand the intricacies of it and you know, the build-ups and the climaxes and so on, you start to enjoy the music, but you can't enjoy it straight away. You have to kind of work at enjoying it. And that is true of so much music, and especially true of a lot of modular synth music. And so I think it's safe to say, you know, if you are somebody who's new to modular synth, or maybe even if you're somebody who's not interested in modular synth and you're kind of looking from the outside in and thinking, what is this crazy stuff? Well, it's you know, it can be experimental, it can be difficult to listen to, but it is something that you have to spend time listening to before you can really truly appreciate it. You know, and at the end of the day, it's not about sort of choosing sides and saying, well, you know, this music's better than that music, or this music's more musical than that music, or anything like that. It's more about opening yourself up to listening to different things and understanding different types of music and having appreciation for different types of music. And that does take time and effort on the part of the listener. And so, you know, back to this point that I often see in comments, which says that most modular synth people are not making music, or it's a tiny minority of people that actually make real music with a modular synth and everyone else is just kind of messing around. And undoubtedly there are people who are not considering themselves composers and are not creating pieces of music that you could say are finished pieces of music, but they are creating music in their own way. You know, just patching something together and letting that go and letting it loop around for an amount of time and maybe having it on in the background while you're doing something else. That it's still music, you know, and there are plenty of people out there, I'm sure, that are making a lot of really good music or really interesting music. They might not necessarily be finishing it, they might not necessarily be releasing it or putting videos on YouTube, but it's still music, and it's still interesting, and it's still good. And of course, you know, there's still an awful lot of people out there, or there's still an awful lot of music on YouTube that just doesn't get views. You know, I think the majority of modular synth videos that I watch, where it's other people, you know, posting their patches or posting their pieces of music, a lot of the time the views are really, really low. And this is something that I've talked about before in other videos. It's really difficult to get those views. Still, it's still more views than you'd get if you were set up down the local pub or whatever, or the local open mic night and tried to do a gig. It's still going to be way more people viewing your video than that, but compared to, you know, what we class as a large number of views on YouTube, they're minuscule, tiny amounts of views. You know, and that's the same for my own stuff as well. You know, I think if I post a music video, I'll, you know, be lucky to get 100 views. So I think that it's not true that there aren't people out there creating music. They are out there, they're just not necessarily attracting a large number of viewers. You know, and at the end of the day as well, modular is, although sometimes it does feel like modular is a genre, it's not a genre really. Modular is a medium, it's a tool, it's a way of, you know, it's a way of making music, but it's also something that you can add to other ways of making music. You can supplement or augment what you already do. And a lot of people, you know, make great music, and the modular is just a very small part of that. It's not the only thing that they're doing, or not the main thing that they're doing. You know, and as also I've talked about in other videos, not everything that you do needs to be useful or musical. Sometimes just that sort of playful, explorative discovery that you can lose yourself in for a couple of hours with a modular is the most important thing that you can do. And that couple of hours, you're still creating a piece of music. It may be a piece of music that only exists for that brief time, and then it's gone because you pull all the patch cables out, or you go on to do something else, or whatever. But it's still there. It still existed. And so I think if you are watching this video and you're somebody who's new to modular, or you're thinking about getting into modular, or maybe you're just curious about what it's about, and or maybe even if you're somebody who thinks it's a waste of time because of all this noise and so on, I would just invite you to maybe try and spend some time exploring outside of what you would usually listen to. Try and find some of this weird stuff that's going on, and try spending some time listening to it, and actually see if you can start to understand what's happening there and start to appreciate it. If you are somebody who you've been into modular for some time and you want to recommend certain artists, I will probably put some links to some interesting channels in the description, but or some channels that I enjoy listening to in the description. But if you know of some really interesting modular artists that are doing some really cool stuff and you want to leave some links in comments, then please do that. Sometimes it does take a while for those comments to filter through because YouTube puts a hold on them, but I try and quickly approve them as quickly as I can. And if you think that modular synth is just about noise, maybe it's just that you haven't heard the right patch yet, or you haven't spent enough time listening to it. So just try and spend a little bit of time listening to some of the weird and crazy stuff that's out there. At the end of the day, modular synth, it does kind of it sort of invites us to question what music actually is, and that might be a topic for another video. What is music? How do we define music? That is such a vast topic. I think that is probably a topic for another video. But yeah, it does kind of invite us to sort of question that what is music, because it can be so many things. It can be so many genres can be performed via modular, and whether it is just kind of bleep bloopy stuff, or a reworking of Bach or ambient or whatever, it all exists, and it's all good and it's all interesting. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. Maybe not such a longer video today, but I hope you found it interesting. I think there are way more people doing way more interesting musical things with modular than YouTube would have us believe. And if you're a skeptic and somebody who might put those kind of comments on videos, then maybe just see if you can explore a little bit more and see actually what is going on in this wonderful world of modular. Okay, well, that's enough for now. I will see you in the next video. Cheerio.